the Church of Scientology is so afraid of.
This is SPTV.
Welcome back, everybody, for a little bit more SPTV. I'm joined today by the one and only Nasty Nathaniel. How's it going, man?
Oh, whoa. Hey, groovy, brother. How are you?
Good. For those, it's been a while since we've done a chat on my channel, I think. When was the last time? Was it actually Danny Masterson stuff? I can't even remember. What was it that we talked about? Do you remember?
We were talking about First Amendment audits of Scientology and kind of my experience of doing First Amendment audits of Scientology. I think that was like November, I want to say.
God, it feels so much longer than that. But guys, let me show everyone before we get started here. We're going to be talking about Danny Masterson. We're going to be talking about Nathaniel's experience as an inmate in the California prison system. He knows exactly what is coming for Danny Masterson. But here is Nasty Nathaniel's YouTube channel. Almost 60,000 subscribers. He does these First Amendment Auditor videos, which I have grown to have such an appreciation for. I love the stuff that you do. There's a whole lot of First Amendment audit channels that I watch on YouTube. No one else really has the balls to go do it to Scientology organizations, though.
Yeah, it's a different animal when you're dealing with Scientology, but you know that.
Totally. Okay, so I had already done a chat with my lawyer friend Zach about what is in store for Danny Masterson, and then I did another chat with my former police chief friend John Poe about the law enforcement perspective of what's in store for Danny Masterson. But then you emailed me and said, look, nobody actually knows what this experience is like unless you've been through the experience. And you wanted to share some thoughts about it. What did you think? Like, how was your experience different than what we've already heard? Or do you just want to not necessarily get into that, just go into whatever your take is?
Well, I mean, the thing of it is that, and you hit it right, right on the nail when you said it. I mean, unless you've actually been through it, you're not going to know what it's like. Because I'll say this, like, being in prison, I mean, it's a completely different world in there. I mean, it's just, and again, unless you've been through it, you're just not gonna. Because I hear people talk about, and this is part of the reason why I wanted to discuss this with you. It's because, you listen to these interviews where people talk about what's going to happen to so and so. Like I remember during the Michael Jackson trial, people were talking about, well, if Michael Jackson is found guilty, what's his time in prison going to be like? And none of these people, these correspondents or whatnot, none of them had ever served a day in jail or prison, so they didn't know what they were talking about. And I'm not trying to suggest that like Zach or John, that they don't know what they're talking about. It's just that, you can't, unless you've been there. It's like I said, it's just a completely different world in there. And that's kind of why I wanted to share my perspective, and especially considering the fact that Danny Masterson's going to do his time in a California state prison, which is where, unfortunately, I did my time more than 20 years ago. So,
how long were you in?
I was in for a total of 27 months. My sentence was 4 years with half, and I did 27 months, so 2 years and 3 months of actual time. From the day I got locked up to the day I walked out the front gate.
Do you want to say what it was for?
Yeah. No, I don't have a problem saying that. It was a terrorist threat case. It was a case that involved making terrorist threats against a police officer. Basically, to give you the short, quick version of it, there was a cop who had, he was very homophobic, and he was harassing me because I was gay. And what's funny is that police officer, I won't say his name, but in 2015, he was actually indicted by the California Attorney General and was arrested and ended up going on trial for falsifying police reports. So, he was no angel.
Wow. So, okay, so terroristic threats, just with respect to the police officer himself or whatever, I mean...
Yeah,
what does that mean? You send him a mean letter? Like, I don't know what that means. Does it matter?
No, I don't mind. Now, what it was is me and a friend of mine were writing these letters. We were typing them up, and we were addressing him to the city of Pismo Beach because he was a city of Pismo Beach police officer. And we were saying that unless the city of Pismo Beach paid us $1 million ransom, we were gonna kill this police officer that I mentioned. And I don't know if you've ever seen the original Dirty Harry movie with Clint Eastwood.
I haven't.
Well, in that movie, there's a guy that's going around killing people in the city. It takes place in San Francisco, and he's writing these letters to the city of San Francisco saying, unless you pay me $100,000, I'm going to kill someone every day until I get this ransom. So the whole movie is Clint Eastwood, who plays the character Dirty Harry, is trying to catch this guy. And he was writing these letters to the city, and he was saying things like, I want the bills in increments of 20s or $10 bills and $20 bills. So I came up with this brilliant idea of, okay, well, I'll ask for $1 million ransom, and I'll say that I want the bills in increments of 5s and 10s. I mean, can you imagine $1 million in 5s and 10s? I mean, and just for the record, I mean, neither me or my friend planned on carrying this act out. We just wanted to scare this homophobic a-hole cop. But I got the idea from that movie, the original Dirty Harry movie from 1971, which is a great movie, by the way.
4 years
Yep.
sentence for that.
Yeah. And so what I did, how it worked out in the court was I wrote a series of 4 letters. And so that was a charge of terroristic threats, which is California PC 422, making terrorist threats. So they added a charge for each letter. So it was 4 counts. What I was found guilty of was 4 counts of making terroristic threats, 4 counts of attempted extortion for asking for $1 million. I guess they took that more seriously than I did, and 1 count of stalking.
Interesting. Did your friend also go to prison?
No, he didn't, because I wouldn't give him up.
Oh, I got it. So what is in store for Danny Masterson? How does this work? What should he expect to? What will his experience be like?
Okay. Well, obviously we all know that he was remanded into custody following the verdict, which is what I expected would happen. I think your friend Zach Morgan even said that he expected him to be remanded. So right now he's. I actually just looked him up today. He's being held at the Los Angeles County Men's Central Jail, which is actually walking distance from the criminal courts building, and I'm going to guess that most likely he's probably being held in a unit called 7,000 unit, which is a high power. They call it high power, and that's basically it's a PC unit, protective custody. That's where O.J. Simpson was held. That's where the Menendez brothers, Robert Blake, Phil Spector. So he's going to be held in a PC unit while he's in the LA County jail. Now I will say this: I didn't catch my case in Los Angeles County, so I've never been in the Los Angeles County jail. But I've met plenty of people in the joint that have gone through the LA County jail system, and LA County jail is probably I would say the worst county jail. I mean, maybe like Chicago Cook County jail might be worse, or New York City, Rikers Island might be worse, but he's miserable right now. So he's going to sit in LA County jail in isolation until he goes for sentencing, which is going to be on, I think they said it was August 4th is when his sentencing is.
Yeah, August 4th might be some motions. August 14th might be the sentencing. I'm not totally sure.
Yeah, so he's in complete isolation in LA County jail. Now, as far as when he gets sentenced, he is. I can almost guarantee you he's going to go when he goes from LA County jail to the California Department of Corrections and Rehabilitation. He's going to be on a level 4 yard, which is high maximum security. And in the California state prison system, they break it down by levels. You got 4 levels. Level 1 is minimum security. Level 4 is high maximum security. And I mean, I don't know if he'll get 30 years to life, but I'm guessing that whatever kind of sentence he gets is going to be somewhere close to that. And so he's gonna most definitely go.
Let me make a quick comment, just because I've seen so much incorrect information about this. Okay. Some places have reported he's going to get up to 30 years. 30 years is the minimum sentence for Danny Masterson. He is fading facing 30 years to life. Now, 30 years to life. Now, considering, so yes, he's found guilty for 2 counts, but even the court itself is aware of 6 victims. And so, anyway, whether the judge is going to take all that into consideration or not, who knows? But it is minimum of 30 years. I just wanted to say that. Okay.
So with that being said, he's going to go to a level 4 yard. And like I said, level 4 is high maximum security. It's the highest you can go. And that's how they break it up in the California prison system. But first he's going to go, so he's going to be sentenced. Eventually at some point, he's going to be transported from the Los Angeles County Jail, and he's going to go to a state prison reception center. Now, being that he was convicted in Los Angeles County, he'll either go to Wasco State Prison, which is near Bakersfield, or North Kern State Prison, which is in Delano, which is also near Bakersfield. And the reception center is where you go. That's where they, they basically process and classify you. And he's going to be there from, most of the time, it's 2 to 3 months. Like I spent 2 months in the reception, in the Wasco State Prison Reception Center. And reception is horrible. It's almost, to me, it was almost as bad as county jail. You're just, when I went through reception, because of, obviously I wasn't doing, a super long sentence, I was in a dorm type setting where there's, a bit more, freedom and so forth. But in reception, it's like county jail. He's going to be completely isolated for 2 to 3 months, and with minimal movement. But ultimately what's going to end up happening is once he gets through the reception process, he's going to go, I can almost guarantee you, he's going to go to what's called an S&Y yard. And S&Y stands for sensitive needs yard. And that's basically, in the California prison system, that's what they call protective custody. And an S&Y yard, so when he goes to an S&Y yard, he's going to be on a yard with other people who are needing protective custody. So he's going to be on a yard with everything from gang dropouts to confidential informants, ex-cops, people with sex crimes, that sort of thing, high-profile cases, basically people that would be in danger if they were placed in the general prison population.
What does that stand for, S&Y?
It stands for Sensitive Needs Yard.
Oh, S-N-Y. Okay.
S-N-Y, okay. Yeah. Sorry, I should have explained that better. That's my fault.
No, you did. I just heard S and Y. S-N-Y. I get it.
Yeah.
Okay, so what is the point of that reception area? I want to make sure I understand how all the dots fit together. So you've got jail and the reception area and then prison. What's this reception area? What's the deal with it?
So the reception center is basically, so once he leaves LA County and he gets to, like I said, he's either going to go to Wasco or North Kern. Let's just say he goes to North Kern. Once he gets to the North Kern State Prison Reception Center, he's no longer in the custody of the Los Angeles County Sheriff. Now he's in custody of the California Department of Corrections and Rehabilitation. And so the point of the reception center is they have to figure out where they're going to put him. And they're going to look at the amount of time he's got, which is, that's the main factor in determining what level he's going to be placed at. And I would bet money he's most surely going to be placed on a level 4. At least he's going to start his sentence off on a level 4 yard. Obviously, because he's famous, and that's going to, they're going to take that into consideration. They're going to look at the type of crime he was convicted of. And that's what they do for everyone. They got to figure out where they're going to put you, because they can't just throw you out in with the wolves. I mean, they gotta look at all these different factors. I mean, Danny Masterson, being that, for one, he's a celebrity, 2, he's got money, and 2, he's in there for despicable crimes. Those 3 factors alone are going to make him a target for violence. And so yeah.
So in your experience, specifically referring to your experience, how capable were the guards of protecting inmates from violence?
My experience is well, okay, I'll give you an example. Like the prison that I went to a place called Avenel State Prison, and I was classified as a level 2, so I was in a dormitory setting. The building, the housing unit that I was housed in, housed close to 300 inmates. You know, I think it was like 295 or something like that, but almost 300 people. And at any given time, there were 3 correction officers in that unit.
Wow.
With a unit of almost 300 people. Basically, I mean, unless something happens right in front of them, you know, like which that usually didn't happen. I mean, normally if there was going to be a fight or something like that, you know, people would do it in an area where the guards couldn't see it, or wait until the guards went out on their smoke break or whatnot. So, I mean, to answer your question, you know, I don't think there's much that, I mean, besides from, like I said, you know, placing him on an S&Y yard, you know, it's not like he's going to be constantly under supervision. I mean, it's just not going to happen that way.
Let me ask it a different way, based on your experience. Mm-hmm. You are at a level 2 facility?
Yes, I was.
So even at that level 2 facility, I don't know if it's a fair assumption to say that the lower the grade of the facility, the lesser the propensity to violence or whatever. I don't know what the truth is there. But how common was violence in the facility that you were at?
I wouldn't say it was super common. I mean, typically, like, there was, because the building was kind of shaped like a horseshoe, and then you had like A side, B side, C side, and there were 2 tiers, and they were all filmed with dormitories, and they were like little cubicles, you know, and there would be like 5 bunks in one cubicle, 5 bunks in the other, and then the guard station was in the middle, and then there was like a day room with a A side TV area, C side TV area, showers in the middle. So typically, if there was going to be a fight, you'd take it to, like, there was a designated area that the inmates had called Dorm 1, which they called the Thunder Dorm. You know, what you were supposed to do is go in the Thunder Dorm, and that dorm was kind of off in the corner where, you know, the COs, you know, which are the correctional officers, the guards, couldn't really see it. And typically that, and not only just that, like, you know, prearranged fights, like if someone had an issue with somebody or whatnot, hey, go in Dorm 1 and take care of it. Typically, too, if someone was going to get jumped, you know, they would try to, you know, wait until that person got into an area where, you know, it wasn't real visible. You know, I mean, obviously they're, you know, like if someone was going to try to jump Danny Masterson, they're not going to do it right in front of the guard station. They're going to wait until he gets into a vulnerable spot. You know, like if he goes into the restroom or to take a leak or something like that. You know, so he's definitely going to be, you know, and despite the fact that, like I mentioned earlier, he's going to be on an S&Y yard still, he's still going to be a target. Because, yeah, it's S&Y, it's PC, it's supposed to be relatively safe. You know, still, he's like I said, he's going to be in there with ex-gang members and people. And just typically, you know, people in prison don't, and this is pretty much common knowledge, don't like sex offenders. Sex offenders are considered the lowest of the low. And, you know, so he's definitely going to be a target. I would say probably, my guess is going to be within the first year. You know, something's probably going to happen to him. I'm not saying he's going to get killed or anything like that, but somebody's probably going to try to do something to him. I mean, look at what was that guy? Subway guy, Jared Fogle. I mean, what was it, like the first month after he arrived at the federal prison that he's at, he got jumped.
So I have a question every time I see people mention the likelihood of him going into solitary. You know, in the TV shows and the movies, you see solitary used as a form of punishment. The idea of using solitary as a form of protection, I guess, seems a little crazy to me. I mean, the research that I've heard cited time and time again is that it's solitary is one of the worst things you can do to someone. Would they really do that to protect someone? Do you have any experience with that?
Well, the only way that somebody goes to solitary in prison, they call it the hole. And the hole is it's weird because it's also used as a form of protecting people who may be in danger, or inmates who may be in danger. But it's also used as a form of punishment. Like if you get in a fight, they're gonna roll you up and throw you in the hole. But the hole's just a temporary thing. Like, for example, let's say Danny Masterson gets to the prison, whatever prison they ultimately determine he's going to go to, like, let's say Corcoran or wherever. He's gonna go to an S&Y yard. At some point down the road, someone, let's say they jump him and they beat him up and they steal his canteen or whatnot. They're going to roll him up. They're going to send him to the hole, which is solitary. And he's going to end up back out on the yard. It's not like they're going to throw him in the hole and be like, okay, well, this is where you're going to stay for the next 30 years. They're going to put him in the hole. They're going to, they're going to do an investigation to find out, what happened, why was he attacked, who did it. They're going to talk to other inmates on his block to try to find out if anybody saw anything. And being that he's on an S&Y yard, which is full of, snitches and informants and stuff, somebody's going to tell. But the point I'm making is ultimately he's going to end up back out on the yard again. Maybe not necessarily that yard. They may put him on another yard within the institution, or they may ship him to another prison if that's what they decide to do, depending on the circumstances.
You mentioned something about the length of time a person is set to serve is one of the main factors they take into consideration when deciding where to put people. I wondered about that, whether it was the type of crime, the severity of time, the length of the sentence. I mean, I guess length of the sentence is probably correlated to severity of the crime. So considering he's looking at many decades and considering he's guilty of a violent offense, he really is going to end up being in pretty much the worst place you can be.
Yeah, I mean, level 4 is the most restrictive. As far as level 1 is just minimum security. Those are like camps. There's no fence, or if there is a fence, it's like goes up to your waist. There's no razor wire. Level 2, like, which is where I went, are open dormitories but the main difference between a level 2 and a level 1 is a level 2 has a secured perimeter. There is an electrified fence, there is guard towers. You can't just walk away like you can at a level 1 yard. I mean, people walk off level 1 yards all the time. And then level 3 and 4 are, cells and more secured setting. So he's definitely going to start out on a level 4 yard and until he gets his points down, because every year your points drop depending on
So explain that to me, because I don't know what that is.
Okay, so he's going to start out on a level 4 yard. Eventually, at some point, maybe 4 or 5 years down the road, when his points drop, he's going to...
No, but I don't know what points means.
Okay, points, I'm sorry. Points is like the number of points you're assigned when you enter prison determines what level you're going to go. Like, and again, that has to do with the length of your sentence. And they also look at other things too, like were you married, gang affiliation. Obviously, I mean, he's not a gang member. Do you have past criminal history? Things like that. And every year, your points drop, because that's more time off your sentence. And also too, like if you've participated in certain programs in prison, those might cause your points to drop. But the longer you serve, eventually your points are going to be reduced. And then let's say eventually he's going to be able to drop down to a level 3. And then eventually at some point he's going to be able to drop down to a level 2. Like the prison that I was at, Avenal, even though it was a level 2, you had people there serving life sentences. Like the guy that slept right next to me was this older guy from New York. He was doing 15 to life on a second-degree murder conviction. But the guy had been in 12 years. So he was already at the point where he was getting ready to go before the parole board. And, he had a chance to get in. But he had been in the system so long that his points had he was able to drop down to a lower level prison, and eventually that will happen to Danny Masterson.
Interesting. You mentioned whether a person was married. Does that count in your favor or against?
Oh, it counts actually in your favor. If you're married, I mean, I guess that shows like a more stable home life. Like I remember meeting one guy in the reception center. He was a young guy, and he went to see his counselor. And that's another thing too. When you're in the reception center, eventually you go see what's called your counselor, and they ask you things like, okay, like one of them is, what prison would you like to go to? And you get like a first or second choice, which is totally ridiculous because nobody ever goes where they ask to go, and so, and anyways, this young guy that I met in there, his counselor told him that he was, based on his points, he was going to go to a level 2 yard. And then he told his counselor, when they asked him about gang affiliation, he told them, yeah, I'm in a gang, which is so stupid. I don't know why he did that. And then they're like, oh, well, we're going to have to go back and recalculate your points. And then he ended up being level 3, and he ended up going to a level 3 yard instead of a level 2 yard. So.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
I know it's a lot of information.
I wonder if Danny started a volunteer ministers program in prison, if or a Criminon program. He supervised a Criminon program. If he'd try to get his points down, if they'd be like, jack his points up, he's in a gang.
That's hilarious.
All right, let's take a look at some of the questions here. Won't Danny go to federal prison like Josh Duggar due to his conviction? What's your take on this?
No, he won't, because he was not tried and convicted in federal court. The only people that go to federal prisons are people that are indicted on federal charges. Danny's case was at the state level, so he's gonna go to a California state prison.
Yep. Okay, next one here from Darlene. Will he go to San Quentin? Now, you already said specifically where you thought he would go. How do you know that?
Well, he's going to, mainly I was referring to the reception center. And what reception center you go to, that's based upon what county you were convicted in. Because he was convicted in Los Angeles County, people from LA County either go to Wasco State Prison or North Kern State Prison, and those are reception centers. I went to Wasco State Prison because I was convicted in San Luis Obispo County, and at that time, people from SLO County went to Wasco. But as far as once he gets through the reception process, California has one of the largest prison systems in the country, so to kind of pinpoint what prison he's going to go to, there's a number of different level 4 prisons. I mean, he could go to Corcoran, he could go to Salinas Valley, he could go to High Desert, But to answer Darlene's question, will he go to San Quentin? Most definitely not right off the bat, because San Quentin, what's interesting about that prison is people think of San Quentin as like, oh my God, that's like the one of the worst prisons in the country. San Quentin is actually a level 2. Back in the day, San Quentin, that used to be like where they sent the worst of the worst for California. It hasn't been that way for years. Actually, I met people that had transferred in from San Quentin, and they really liked it because it's an older prison, and it has cells, which normally in a level 2 you wouldn't be in a cell, but because it's just so old and outdated, they had converted it down to a level 2, and a lot of guys actually liked San Quentin. So basically what I'm trying to say is San Quentin is not the nasty, evil place that we all think of, So
it's probably better than the Sea Org.
Yeah. And Aaron, it's funny that you I mean, not to get off topic, but I remember one time you were on one of your shows, you were talking about like the food in the Sea Org, and somebody was saying that like the food in prison is better than I can't forget who it was.
They spend more money. They spend more money per prisoner per meal in prison than they do in the Sea Org.
Yeah, I just thought that was hilarious. So yeah, I mean that the food, probably is better.
Okay, the scrapbooker asks, will he have to undergo a psych evaluation?
Yes, everyone does.
That's
everyone.
interesting that he won't be able to claim religious exemption or something like that.
He can try, but all it's going to do is delay his time in reception. I mean, everybody wants to get in reception because reception is, like I mentioned earlier, it's just you're just so restricted and you're locked down all the time. Everybody wants to get out of reception and get to a main line, get to where they're going to go. So, if he tries to pull some crap like that, all that's going to do is delay his time. Might even get him thrown in the hole, And so he's definitely not going to want to do that.
Very interesting. Okay, Claire Alice says, been in Cook County, Chicago, and toured reception center. It's no joke. The COs are almost as scary as the inmates. He's most likely to be raped because famous a-hole rapist and hurt in the beginning. What's your take on this?
Do I think he's going to be raped? No. I mean, I've never been in Cook County Jail. I mean, that's obviously in Chicago and Illinois. I mean, they have their own prison system. Danny Masterson, no, he this kind of stuff. I mean, he's not going to he's not going to Shawshank prison. This isn't the Shawshank Redemption where he's gonna. But do I think he's going to be attacked? Yes, definitely. But do I think he's going to get like drug in the shower and you know what? No.
That's good to hear. Evelyn Lee Barney, is there a difference between the way inmates respond to sex offenders who have attacked children versus adults?
Well, I mean, people in prison who harm children are, I mean, that's the lowest of the low. Any type of abuse of children, but typically, in prison, anybody that has any kind of sex crime on their jacket is going to be, I'll give you an example. I remember, and this was actually while I was in prison. This didn't happen at the prison I was at, but it was on the news while I was in there. There was these two guys, and this was at Solano State Prison, which is up in Northern California. There were two guys that they celled up together. One was in there for child molestation, and the other one was in there for forcible rape, like Danny Masterson. And they put these two guys together, thinking like, okay, well they're both sex offenders. They'll be able to, they'll be safe, sharing a cell together. Well, the guy that was in there for rape ended up killing his cellmate, the one who was in there for child molestation, because he felt that his crime was worse than his. Like he had raped a woman, where this guy had abused a child. So,
wow.
Yeah, it's a completely different. I hope that answers that question.
Yeah, definitely. Okay, Mike 698. Aaron, isn't it a minimum of 15 years for each count, and the sentence could be concurrent? No, there's no. My understanding is that there's no possibility of the sentences being served concurrently. But I have been told that there's some elderly parole program in California that if you're over the age of 55 and you've already served 20 years consecutively in prison, you're eligible for parole. Now, Danny Masterson is already 47. So, and again, I'm taking the information at face value. It was sent to me by someone who claims to know. There's a chance that no matter how much time Danny is sentenced to, by the time he served 20 years, he'll be eligible for parole. To that, I would just say 20 years is a long time. 20 years is a really long time to be in prison. I don't know that he's going to sleep any better knowing that he might get out in 20 years. Are you familiar with that elderly parole stipulation?
It's actually on the CDCR's website. I believe it's. I have to look at it again, but I'm almost positive. I believe it's 60 if you're at least 60 years or older, and you've served at least 25 years of your sentence. You'll automatically become eligible for parole. That doesn't mean you're going to get parole. That means they'll give you a board hearing, because you've got some guys that are in there doing, 75 years to life, 90 years to life. I mean, you got some really crazy, like, long sentences. So for somebody, let's say you have a guy who's doing, 75 years to life, for somebody like that, yeah, that'd be a break. They can come up for parole if they've done 25 years. But that's actually on CD. I have actually seen that on the Department of Corrections website. It does have a thing about that on there.
Okay. Dave Owens says he may end up in the state prison in Lancaster. Is that in California, or is that... I only know Lancaster, PA.
No, Lancaster's in California. It's actually in L.A. County, but L.A. County is huge. Lancaster's actually out in the desert. As far as I know, Lancaster is not being used as a reception center anymore. I could be wrong on that. I know at one time they did have a reception yard there, but I do know that most of the people that come from Los Angeles County either go to North Quern or Wasco.
Mm-hmm.
But
okay.
It's possible.
Care 4JCYT says points also go up with new offenses while in. You can get sent to a higher level prison. They don't always go down.
That's absolutely right. Yeah, I mean, I didn't touch on that earlier, but yeah, let's say, for example, he gets in a fight. And if he gets in a fight, he'll be written what's called a 115, and that's a serious rules violation. And a serious rules violation is where you can actually potentially lose time. So, like, if he gets in a fight, he might lose 60 days. But
what does that mean? Lose 60 days. What does that mean?
Lose 60 days off of whatever his earliest possible parole date could be. He'll lose 60 days, so whatever that date is will be pushed back 60 days. But typically with like 115s, let's say he loses 60 days, or I don't know, 90 days or whatnot. If he goes 45 days free, he may be able to get some of that time back or get all of it back, depending on
Okay.
So that's true.
Did we already answer this question here, Nate?
What can he expect in terms of processing? Well, he's going to go to a reception center first, and he's going to go see medical, where they're going to do like a half-ass physical. He's going to have to do a psych evaluation, and they're going to basically reception is like a classification process,
Okay.
Where they're just basically ultimately going to figure out what type of prison he's going to go to.
Right. I've always wondered about this next one myself. Do they not do conjugal anymore?
In California, in the California state prison system, well, first of all, anybody that's serving a life sentence that has an L, which means 15 to life, 30 to life, whatever, people serving life sentences are not eligible for conjugal visits, or they call them, technically they're called family visits. But for him, even if he wasn't serving a life sentence, being that he was convicted of a sex crime, people convicted of sex offenses are not eligible for family visits. So
wow, then Bijou's definitely divorcing his ass, no question about it.
Yeah, so even if he only got, let's say he got 10 years, 10 with half or something like that, he wouldn't be eligible for family visits.
Wow, unbelievable. Okay, John Sostovsky, was Nasty Nate in the Kiss Army?
Yes. Well, I am a die-hard Kiss fan, as you can... Well, I'm actually wearing a Kiss t-shirt. You can't really tell, but...
Oh, okay. Well, I wonder how John knew that. All right. T. Gray says, ironic that he will be in his 70s when he gets out. Yes, they'll be able to relaunch that 70s show once he gets out.
Oh, I love it.
Okay. Petabusk, at least Danny reached the highest level.
Yeah.
That's right. Couldn't make it to the highest level of the bridge, but he did get to the highest level of prison. So there you go. Stephanie Gould, will he have to find a group to provide protection on the inside, or is he pretty much an outcast? Yeah, how does that work?
He's... I mean, there are people that do pay for protection. I mean, being that ultimately he has access to money. I mean, I know he's not like, he's not Tom Cruise rich, but I think I read somewhere that he's worth like $8 million. I don't know now after legal fees. I mean, who knows what that figure's dropped down to? But do I think he'll pay for protection? Well,
I think I think the question is, will he have to join a gang to get protection, or is he going to be an outcast? Like, would any of the the groups accept him, or how do they treat offenders like this?
No, he's not going to be. No, he's going to be an outcast, definitely. I mean, even on, like I said, even on an SNY yard, he's going to be. Sex offenders are still the lowest of the low, and and even on those yards, I mean, they get jumped. They get they get their canteen stolen. They get their nobody. Whether you're in GP, general population, or on SNY, I mean, you're nobody likes sex offenders.
But this is really interesting because, in popular culture, you hear that when you get into prison, you have to join one of the gangs. Will the gangs actually not accept members who are these sex offenders? Is that how that works?
Well, that's just simply not true. I mean, I hear that, like, I've watched some of these prison genre channels like Wets Watson and stuff that say, like, no, you have to join a gang, you have to click up. I never did, and the people that I hung out with weren't in gangs, so that's simply not true. Now, one thing I will say about I can't speak for other states, but I know, like, in the California state prison system where he's going, it is very racial. Like, for example, the whites stick with the whites are known as woods. Typically, if you're a white guy, you're considered a wood, and you basically you're supposed to stick with the whites. And there's stupid rules. Like these chairs are for the whites. These chairs are for the blacks. These chairs are for the southern Hispanics. These are for the northern Hispanics. I mean, but also too,
By the way, that's what I think of when I say gang. I just assumed the gangs were racially divided. Is what that's what I thought.
Okay, yeah, gotcha. No, but also too, he's going to be in a different kind of situation because he's not going to a regular general population mainline yard. He's going to be on an SNY yard.
Yeah. Okay.
So, which is like, I think I heard some correctional officer describe it once as Jurassic Park. So he's going to on those kind of yards. He's going to be. It's a completely different beast over there. So and he's definitely not going to general population. There's no way.
Okay. So Falconator 51 said, I honestly thought that was Phil Anselmo from Pantera in the thumbnail.
I haven't even seen the thumbnail yet.
It's the photo. It's the photo you sent me of yourself in prison.
Oh wow! Yeah, I can't wait to look at that one. Wasn't I better looking back then?
Your words, not mine. Okay. Claire Alice, I hear California jails, prisons are extremely racial. Is that true? If so, how do you think that would play out for Danny? Yeah, there you go. You answered that one.
Yeah.
Bada bing, bada bing. And we answered this one as well. Calico 26. Can he get out of a psych evaluation? It sounds like it wouldn't even be in his benefit to try and get out of it.
No,
but I wouldn't bet against him trying. I think it's probably so baked into his DNA to object to any interactions with anyone he perceives to be a psych, an evil, dirty psych.
Well, and the thing too, you also keep in mind too that the so-called psych evaluation that I'm referring to in the state prison reception center, this is not like going to see, this is not like sitting on Dr. Phil's couch. This is basically, it's probably going to last 2 minutes, and that basically they're going to ask him, are you thinking of hurting yourself? Are you hearing voices? Stuff like that. I mean, he's going to be in and out of there. It's not like he's going to go through some big, long, testing process. No.
Yeah, that makes sense. Okay, Steve Britton said, I was asking about how invasive the search is. I see. In processing.
Well, I do want to point out that this is okay. Like, for example, me, I went to prison when I was in my early 20s. I'm 45 now. And even for me, obviously I don't come from extreme wealth. I'm not a celebrity. But from, going to prison, I mean, that was, Aaron, I mean, I cannot describe, like everything from like the ride in the van going from the county jail to the Wasco State Prison Reception Center to arriving at Wasco going through the Sally Port. Like the first area you go into is it's called R&R. R&R stands for receiving and release. Anybody that comes into the prison, comes out of the prison, goes through R&R. So that's going to be when he gets off the bus or the van. The first building he's going to go into is R&R, and the first thing they have you do is you strip down, and so he's gonna have to strip down. He's gonna be naked as a jaybird, and he's gonna have to bend over and cough and squat. I mean, and I'm not trying to make a joke out of it. That's like the first thing you do when you enter R&R, and it's so for me, like I said, I'm not a celebrity. I don't come from wealth. I obviously haven't lived the kind of lifestyle that Danny Masterson has lived. And it was a shocking experience for me. So for somebody like him to go from the kind of life that he's led to going to the life that he's going to live for the next 20 or 30 years, he is going to be in, I mean, obviously I don't have his brain, but it's going to be an extremely shocking experience for him. I mean, that first day in prison for him is going to, I mean, he'll never forget that. That's gonna stick with him for the rest of his life. I mean, I remember it clearly, like it was yesterday. You know, just the fear, the rage, it's, man, I just thinking back on it. So for him, yeah, I mean, he's gonna be in a world of shock.
Yeah, I can't.
But he deserves it.
Yeah, I can't even imagine what that would feel like. But yeah, for him. The culture shock. I mean,
yeah,
that's putting it mildly. Okay, Eagle Eye, 29. Has Danny had any martial arts training? I heard his Donkey Punch Bunch was into Fight Club brawls back around 2003, 2004. I don't know. No information. Last one here. Claire Alice. Is Danny still considered a Scientologist? Are medications required if diagnosed by eval? If so, would Scientology auto-declare him SP? Great interview, Aaron. Such a good idea. Okay, so you mentioned that this seeing the counselor or the therapist or whatever, it's like a 2-minute thing. That's not like they're not writing any prescriptions in that interview, are they?
No. I mean, unless he was to go, which I don't think he's going to do this, but unless he went in there and told him, hey, I'm hearing voices, or let's say, he's having trouble sleeping. Like one of the big things when I was in prison was, there were certain guys that would try to get on meds like Seroquel or what's that other one, Trazodone, so they could sleep their time away. I mean, there were the guys that would do that, and these are guys that didn't necessarily have mental illnesses. They would just try to get on these meds because they wanted to be high or they wanted to sleep their time away. But I don't think Danny Masterson's gonna do that.
Nah, man. I think he's gonna be the volunteer ministers in charge of what's one of the prisons he might. If you had to just bet, what's one prison he might legitimately end up in?
If I had to roll the dice,
yeah,
I'm going to put my money on he's going to go to Corcoran.
VMIC Corcoran, Danny Masterson. Put your money on it.
I'm going to guess Corcoran.
Yeah, volunteer ministers in charge, Danny Masterson, Corcoran. Okay, so let me see. Also, you wouldn't get auto-declared for being taken a medication. You would be declared an illegal pre-clear. He's still going to be declared PTS Type B, in my opinion. I genuinely still feel that Danny Masterson will not be declared a suppressive person because that way his family won't have to disconnect from him. Scientology doesn't want to lose all of the Mastersons. And the Mastersons, let's just give them the benefit of the doubt that they have convinced themselves Danny is innocent. I think if they actually thought he was guilty, they wouldn't have actually shown up in court for him every day. I mean, I'm just giving them that benefit of the doubt. Let's assume that they've convinced themselves Danny's the victim of a grand conspiracy orchestrated by Leah Remini and a bunch of dirty SPs. So Scientology wouldn't want to make Danny's family disconnect from him at this point, because then they would risk losing all of them. That's at least my 2 cents on it. Okay, E.G. Johnson. My religion says I cannot interact with psychiatrists, prison guards, or prisons, so I guess they got to let me out. Exactly. Okay, so what about shaving his head? Are they still doing this? So in one of the earlier interviews, Nate, one of my guests said they don't do that anymore. Is that what's your take on it?
Well, no, they don't. They used to have what's called they called it and again, I'm relating this to California. In the California State Prison, they had what are called grooming standards, where your hair had to be. You couldn't have hair covering your ears. You could have, a short mustache, no beards, no long hair. But I want to say it was, it was late. It was December of 2005. They did away with the grooming standards, and I know this because I actually went back to prison on a parole violation for absconding, and but I was actually there when they and it was some kind of it had something to do with. The Native American Indians, the Native American inmates had filed some kind of lawsuit saying that it violated their rights somehow. So, ultimately, California did away with the grooming standards. So, as of now, I mean, unless they've changed it, I mean, I haven't been back to jail or prison in a long time. But there's no grooming standards. So he's not going to have to shave his head.
He might want to. It might look a little too delicate with all those curls flopping around like that.
I love it.
Lisa Marchbanks, Dragonfish Handmade Goods. Laura Prepon could tell him about prison. Indeed. And last one we've got here. I went through Orange County Jail. He will be level 3. Why do you think he's saying he'll be level 3?
I don't.
Russ is one of the other guys who emailed me and said that he's been to California prison and wanted to give me all the 411 on it.
Okay.
So, but I'm curious. I'm curious, Russ, why you say that, but I can't ask you, I guess. Well, there we go. Okay, we have one more here. The Pickles and Bacon Show. Will Masterson be able to audit or take courses in prison? He could take extension courses if he wanted to, but why in the hell would you want to? Shit, what a waste of. I mean, what a shitty way to spend prison doing Scientology courses.
and I will say during my my time in prison, there were different religious factors on the yard. Like there was the Muslim inmates had a mosque, which is basically one of the small room in the chapel, and then there was a small LDS congregation on the yard. They didn't have their own room in the chapel, but they would meet out in the yard and do their little Bible studies. And then there was the Christian chapel and the Catholic chapel and the Protestant chapel. And so, but I never, ever, I mean, obviously, I mean, even back then, I mean, I knew what Scientology, I knew of Scientology, and I've never heard of anyone, anybody leading any kind of like Scientology service or, I mean, God, there's less than what 20,000 Scientologists in the world, and I mean, I don't,
exactly.
How many make up what kind of population they have in the California prison system?
Exactly. All right, everyone, don't forget, if you want to subscribe to Nasty Nate on YouTube, you can find him under Nasty Nathaniel. He does amazing First Amendment audit videos, and he's one of the only guys out there who will do those videos at Scientology properties. I truly love them. So thanks for doing this with me, man. I really appreciate it.
Thanks for having me. I appreciate you having me on.
My pleasure. Hey, I don't know, did I tell you this? When you flew out to Clearwater for my my city council launch party, my campaign launch party, and then we took that photo together and we posted it to social media. My opponent tried to get the press to run an article about me being supported by a domestic terrorist.
That's just so hilarious. Yeah, And I knew even back, and this is back in 2016 when I first started doing First Amendment audits at Scientology orgs. And obviously this is before I met you or, a lot of Karen or any of the other legendary SPs. Even back then, I knew enough to know that eventually that would come out, that they would find out that I had a criminal record from 2002 and that they would. So even back then, I'm surprised it took them as long as they did. And, it's funny because I remember when we did our first interview, you were asking me about, like, has Scientology fair gamed you? And I gave you a couple of examples. But one of the things that I failed to mention was that they had put me on a hate website. As far as I know, yours is the third one that they put me on. There was one other one they put me on. And I remember they had a smear website called the Ortega Bunker. You know, obviously Tony Ortega has the underground bunker. Well, they had one called the Ortega bunker, and there was like a section for Claire Headley, a section for you, a section for Graham, and they made one for me, and they put like some link to my court case, and I mean it was just so laughable.
It's funny because it wasn't Scientology that tried to get the press to run that article. It was my actual opponent and her team, which is how you know was just more evidence that Scientology was helping her campaign, because there's no way my opponent did a background check on the guy in the photograph at my party. Do you know what I'm saying? So
Yeah.
like Scientology took the information and gave it to her, Lena Teixeira, by the way. And then her team tried to get the media to run with it. And anyway, they never did anything with it, obviously, but
That's hilarious, and it just goes to show that, you know, like, you know, when I've told like other First Amendment auditors or people I know that like, oh yeah, you know, Scientology has tried to like infiltrate my Facebook and stuff, and they go, oh really? Dude? I mean, come on, you know, but it's really true. Like I like, for example, like my Nasty Nathaniel Instagram, where they got that picture from, is public. Anybody can look at that. But like my personal Facebook page, you know, I have it set to private, so only people that are on my friends list, like you, can see my photos. But somehow, somebody had friend requested me, and I added him, because I used to be a lot more liberal about adding people, and went and lifted a photo from. I had this photo on my my Facebook. It was like a fake mugshot that I made, and I remember I put a quote under it from a Leon Russell song, you know, where it's you know, I'm just another character for the police to fingerprint and book, and anyways, I put this fake mugshot that I made on my Facebook, and it does kind of look like a real mugshot. Well, Scientology took that picture and put it on that Ortega bunker website, you know, and said, you know, to just, it's just, so yeah, they I mean, obviously I'm not telling you anything you don't already know, but they, you know, they do infiltrate our social medias.
Absolutely, man. All right, everyone. Well, thank you for tuning in. Hope this has been a little helpful, a little entertaining, all that good stuff. We'll talk to you soon, guys. Bye.
All right. Happy trails.
Okay, if you want to see my rock and roll songs, click right on this guitar. And if you want to see a different one of my videos, then you could click right inside here. If you have subscribed or not, subscribe right here. Bye.